Ladies and gentlemen, we are guest-free on 5/5 this Tuesday, 5th day of May, 2015, worldwide transmission. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to have wide-open telephones throughout the 3 hours because I didn't take any phone calls Sunday or yesterday on any issue. If you agree, if you disagree, if you hate my guts, if you love me, if you have a poem you want to read on air, you name it, it is Free-for-All Tuesday. It could be Free-for-All Wednesday if we announced it, but today is Free-for-All Tuesday, and we will be taking your phone calls throughout the transmission. But the first quadrant of the broadcast today, the first hour or so, we are going to open the phones up to people that disagree. If you truly disagree, if you legitimately have a beef with this broadcast, if you think that we've gotten something wrong, or you think I'm making something up, or you want to accuse me of being a 14-year-old reptoid from the planet Pop-Tart, or a Vatican assassin, we would love to hear from you. It's just totally wide open, free-for-all today. But people that disagree legitimately, you are welcome to call in first, and we're going to keep the phone lines open. Now, that's always a problem because the network only has 6 phone lines. Here at my offices, we have, like 20 phone lines? And so perhaps we should fire up our internal phone system. But again, don't call it unless you disagree in the first hour because we want to actually let those people get through. And I don't want to hear a bunch of satire where people call in and act like they disagree with the broadcast, like I think Smitty's doing. I don't think he's for real. We've been sending messages on Facebook that, hey, I'm Smitty, I'm being a fake. Who knows, that could be fake. I want to hear from the real Smitties out there, and they've called before. I want to understand your mindset, like the folks that are accusing me of being a racist because I don't want to have a civil war with the police. And then I'm supposedly siding with police brutality when everybody knows I'm not, who actually pays attention to what we do. I see the Justice Department that's totally wicked. I see all these foreign globalist think tanks and front groups, like the Southern Poverty Law Center and ADL, pushing for what Al Sharpton's come out and promoted. Al Sharpton reveals federal agenda. Quote, we need the Justice Department to take over policing. That video is on InfoWars.com. Totally have the feds in the states as we know it. And that's already basically happened to a great extent. They just want to put the nails in the coffin as states begin to move in the direction of sovereignty. So when the feds torch Waco, who's going to oversee them? Well, then it's the UN. It's the UN saying we're not legalizing enough illegals and paying for all their welfare and having babies and jobs and the rest of it and letting them vote. The most spread leg country in the world to immigration. Sorry about that allegory, but it's true. And it's not enough. And the UN is coming out saying that we need a federal police force under UN control. So once you federalize, you've basically globalized, and that's what the occupiers of this country want. Strangely enough, though, there's an article in the USA Today op-ed area by Glenn Harland Reynolds, who we should get on the show, saying, want a lawless police force? Federalize it. Yeah, you really want lawless? The feds are scary because they basically get away with things more than any other police agency. Are there big problems with state and locals? You bet your bottom dollar. Some departments are excellent. I don't just say it because I live here. Compared to other departments, Austin is excellent. Other areas like Albuquerque, nightmarish. Nightmarish. But it's now being reformed. It's kind of hit rock bottom. We're going to hit that. Huge Jade Helm news, huge economic news, huge military news. It's all coming up.
All over the country, which is why we're going to do this march from here to Washington. We need the Justice Department to step in and take over policing in this country. In the 20th century, they had to fight states' rights and to get the right to vote. We're going to have to fight states' rights in terms of closing down police cases. Police must be held accountable. I don't think all police are bad. I don't even think most are bad. But those that are need to be held accountable.
Now, you heard it. Al Sharpton last night And this is what I've been telling you. Obama is the closer, like the closing pitcher. He comes in to reignite racial division in the country. He comes in to make the people basically be so confused and fighting with each other that we're not even aware the country's been conquered by outside interests that totally run the federal government. One of the last hopes is to have the states line up and say no to that outside takeover. Are the states perfect? No. And under our federalist system, the states have half the power, the feds had half the power, and they shared the power. And half of the power was shared by the House in the legislative, the other half by the Senate, and the Senate was appointed by the states, by the elected legislatures. When they got rid of that in 1913 with the 17th Amendment and brought in the income tax and the private Federal Reserve, the globalist foreign banking cartel mothership had landed in the District of Criminals, and British intelligence began to take the country over completely. In 1922, they set up Pratt House in New York with the express aim of Anglifying the United States that had been out of British control for 140 years. And 102 years later, they're in control. That doesn't mean the British people. No, it means the corporate, financial, Rothschild, Sachs, Coburg, Gotha elites. Starting in the 20s, they began to pay for newspaper and magazine ads promoting Anglophile culture. The Queen on tea sets, the coolest Astors and Vanderbilts would have royalty over to their homes and be in the silent newsreels. It was the coolest thing in the world. England had a Hollywood before we even had one and sent in Anglophile, pro-British Empire propaganda to where you weren't considered part of the elite unless you took up all the British equestrian activities and affected what they call today an Atlantic accent that is buffooned and lampooned in Gilligan's Island with Thurston Howell. Thurston Howell the third, oh lovey. Thurston Howell's wife speaks with a British accent. That's what happened to our country. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are under that system and are now part of that same global philosophy. That's why we follow the exact same policies under the exact same name, run by the exact same people. That's why it's the UK and the United States and the Rockefellers that founded the League of Nations, founded the United Nations, founded absolutely everything. Now, continuing here today, let's hear that one more time from Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton telling a press conference what the real goal is. In the 60s, we stopped states' rights. Well, no, really, that was Lincoln decided that the states had been conquered, but then that got reversed in Congress decades later. So they say that guns decided that the federal government has total control. Well, I say that's a tyranny. And I say, let's see you try to use guns again to do it. And I say we peacefully stand up with ideas and say no. But now Al Sharpton says it's going to be the police. And that means your local counties and your cities. That means your sheriffs that the feds have been for 50 years trying to fund initiatives at the state level to have your police departments take over your sheriff's departments. That is backwards. The counties are chartered by the state. The sheriffs are elected. If a municipal government, the lowest level of government, wishes to vote for the citizens to raise taxes to create a police force under municipal law, they are allowed to. But the sheriff's department
all over the country, which is why we're going to do this march from here to Washington. We need the Justice Department to step in and take over policing in this country. In the 20th century, they had to fight states' rights, and to get the right to vote, we got to fight states' rights in terms of closing down police cases. Police must be held accountable. I don't think all police are bad. I don't even think most are bad. But those that are need to be held accountable.
And the only one to do that, the only group to do that, is the federal government itself, openly run by 5 foreign mega banks that own the private Federal Reserve. The Bank of England Consortium, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and you look at who owns the stock in those, it's the same private families that own the stock in the private 1913 Federal Reserve Charter. The Federal Reserve is just a private holding company with governmental quasi-power, but the shareholders are private, and it was in the newspapers in 1913 and never again. It's a state secret how much the Queen of England's worth, or how much the Queen of the Netherlands or the King of the Netherlands is worth. It's a state secret how much money the Federal Reserve's got and who owns it. And when Alan Greenspan gets asked about that, when he was the head of the Fed, he says, we're above the law. No one can investigate us. In fact, can we pull that clip up? Alan Greenspan says the Federal Reserve is above the law for new listeners. Congress makes the laws. Congress raises the taxes. How did we get to a private bank that calls itself the Federal Reserve? I mean, I could open a federal pizzeria and hire some New York Italians to run it. It'd probably have good pizza, but it wouldn't be federal. Just like Federal Credit Union isn't federal, or Federal Express isn't federal, or Federal Ammunition isn't federal. In the old days, a federal bank was trusted because you could redeem gold at them. So old-timers in 1913, who were just a few decades out of the last century and riding around on mules in the desert, they thought that sounded really credible. Well, that's a federal bank. That's what we need. It needs to run it. Not all these robber barons who they had running news articles all over the country saying they were against the Federal Reserve to trick the public into supporting it. They still couldn't get the support, if you go back and read the newspapers. So they passed it on December 23rd at 11:55 at night, a quorum call of 3 senators. You say, how'd they do it? That's the committee system. They got their underlings to vote in committee to let them be able to have a quorum call. They did a quorum call, and nobody was there at 11 o'clock at night. They'd all gone away for Christmas to eat turkeys and hams. This is the coup over the country. And you got Al Sharpton and George Soros and the White House and the Justice Department, who shipped thousands of guns into Mexico, killed thousands of people, hundreds here, involved in Benghazi, funding ISIS, every crime you can imagine, saying they're taking over the media, internet kill switches, doubling black unemployment, massively increasing funding for black abortions. You talk about decimating the black community, but it doesn't matter. They'll get up there and go at every funeral. Obama sends folks, or he goes, and Trayvon looks like his son, and he cares. Talk about manipulation, and now the answer's federalize the police. And funny, this happened in Baltimore with the mayor, who's one of 3 mayors on that commission on federalizing police with Obama, and it happened in a city where the entire city council, except for one person, is black. The police chief, last time I checked, was black. More than half the force is black. 3 of the cops that supposedly killed this guy in wrongdoing are black. And then last night there was a backfire in downtown Baltimore, and people started rioting again, basically saying that people got out in the streets and got ready to start going crazy because the police said, okay, we think shots were fired by an officer. They believe the mob of people being manipulated who don't speak for most Baltimoreans. You can see the whole plan unfolding. I told you over and over again, and now they're saying it. And I can't believe that even USA Today has an article Want a lawless police force? Federalize it. And that says it all. Because if you have a federal government that's been captured